Hello and welcome one final time to Clarkenomics. This is the last video in the series, and in this video we're going to be talking about exchange rate effects. In a previous video we learned about the Forex, the foreign exchange market, and what causes currency values to change. In this video we're going to look at the effects of those changes. Now before we get into the effects so much, we're going to talk about some different ways that countries manage exchange rates. This is what we call exchange rate regimes, generally just dealing with the policy that a country employs to deal with exchange rates. So the first one, which most countries of the world use, is what's called a floating exchange rate system, which means a currency's value goes wherever the market takes it. In other words, in the graphs that we looked at in the previous video, whatever supply and demand for that currency dictate, that's what the currency's value is. The government does not meddle in trying to affect the value of their currency. It's just floating. Second, this is the opposite, a fixed exchange rate. This is when a government tries to keep its exchange rate steady for its currency. And again, there's not just one exchange rate, but there's exchange rates with all different currencies around the world. But the government plays an active role in trying to keep the exchange rate the same. They don't let it just float wherever the market takes it. The government has a target that they're trying to hit. Now, how do they control the value of their currency on the foreign exchange market since it's beyond their borders? There's a lot of different ways they can do this, but one of the most common is they'll use currency reserves. So, for instance, let's say China not China. Let's use a different country. Uh, Whatever. China. We'll go with China. China wanted their currency to appreciate. They would use like dollar reserves, like American dollars that they hold on to, and buy up their own currency on the foreign exchange market, increasing the demand for it and causing it to appreciate. So that could cause their currency to become more valuable. The opposite would be if the Chinese government bought up a bunch of foreign currencies with their own, right? They'd be supplying more of their own money on the forex and increasing the demand for others and depreciating their currency, right? So there's that's one, but there's different ways countries can do this. Some countries also operate with what's called a fixed float, which means that the government allows the exchange rate to fluctuate a little bit, but they try to keep it within a certain range, right? So it's kind of controlled within boundaries, but there are boundaries there. Why would a government do this? Well, that's a question for some later slides here. Now let's get into the effects. All right, so one of my favorite products is lemon soda. Lemon soda is wonderful in the United States. My favorite brand of it is San Pellegrino. But if you go to Italy, you can, get lots of different brands and try as many as you can. It is delicious. So let's imagine that a lemon soda in Italy cost 2 euros. And we'll also imagine that the exchange rate, what we'd call a nominal exchange rate here, is $2 per euro, which means if you have $2, you can get your hands on a euro. And if you have 2 euros, you can get your hands on a lemon soda, right? So that's the exchange rate. So the question is, how much does that soda, that lemon soda, cost expressed in US dollars? Well, I just told you. You need $2 to get $2 American to get yourself a euro, and you need 2 euros to get yourself a lemon soda. So the correct answer is $4. That soda costs 4 US dollars. Now imagine, if you will, that the US dollar were to appreciate, meaning gain value relative to the euro, and that the new exchange rate is $1.50 per euro. What that means is you used to need 2 US dollars to get your hands on a euro. Now you only need $1.50 to get your hands on a euro. So the question is, how much would that soda cost in US dollars now? Maybe the first thing to do before you calculate an answer is ask yourself, well, should you need more US dollars or fewer US dollars? Right? Just pick a direction. And the answer there would be fewer, because now you don't need as much money to get your hands on a euro. You only need $1.50 to get your hands on a euro. And you need 2 euros to get your hands on a lemon soda. So the correct answer here would be that soda would now cost $3, right? $1.50 times 2, because you need 2 euros to get your hands on a soda. Now, sometimes the question I get is, well, wouldn't the price of the soda in euros change? Maybe, maybe not. That's a discussion of something called real exchange rates, and we will not be covering that in this video. For now, what this means is Italian goods, such as the lemon soda, are now cheaper for Americans, right? We're going to use that lemon soda as a stand-in for all goods from Italy. Because you don't need as many US dollars to get your hands on an Italian product, Italian goods are cheaper for Americans, and Americans are going to want more Italian goods. Now, of course, the opposite of this is true as well, right? If you're an Italian person, if the dollar has appreciated relative to the euro, that means that the euro has depreciated relative to the dollar. So if you're an Italian, American goods are now going to be more expensive, which means you're going to buy less of them. And hopefully now I've hinted a little bit at why governments might try to control exchange rates because it affects how much stuff people buy from their country or from other countries. So long story short, if a country's currency appreciates, foreign goods become cheaper. So let's look at the effects all the way through here. So again, if the dollar appreciates, what does that mean? Well, it means two things. It means American goods become more expensive for foreigners, right? If foreigners want to buy American stuff, they need to shell out more of their own currency in order to get it. But like we said, foreign goods become cheaper for Americans if the dollar is appreciating. Of course, if the dollar is depreciating, everything I just said is in reverse. So what? Who cares? Well, let's ask a couple questions here. If the dollar appreciates, is the United States going to export more stuff to other countries or less stuff to other countries if the dollar is appreciating? The correct answer is the US is going to export less stuff to other countries as a result of the dollar appreciating. Why? Well, it's right here. American goods become more expensive for foreigners. They don't want as much American stuff anymore. And if they don't want as much of our stuff, it means we're exporting less of our stuff to them. Okay, what about imports? Is the US going to import more foreign stuff or less foreign stuff as a result of the dollar appreciating? Well, the US is going to import more foreign stuff. Why? Well, take a look. Foreign goods become cheaper for Americans. If that's the case, Americans are going to want more foreign stuff. Simple as that. So the US is going to import more stuff from other places. Okay, fine. But what about travel? Travel is basically like importing and exporting, except you're going there to get the stuff, right? So if the dollar is appreciating, will more Americans travel to other countries? Or will fewer Americans travel to other countries? Again, the answers are on the slide. More Americans will travel abroad because foreign goods are cheaper, whether we're importing them or whether we're traveling over there to get them ourselves, right? So there's that. And if the dollar appreciates, will more foreigners come to the US for vacation or will fewer foreigners come to the US for vacation? Fewer will, because our stuff is now cheaper more expensive for other people traveling here, right? So these two things, right? US imports more Americans travel abroad. These two things are connected in the same way that US exports less and fewer foreigners travel to the US. Again, right? Exports and imports is just a matter of shipping the stuff from place to place or going to get it yourself as a traveler. So you can tell why this stuff kind of matters here, right? There's a lot of US companies that export things to other countries. Many US consumers buy imported goods, and I even venture to say all US consumers buy imported goods from other countries, right? It'd be very difficult not to these days. A lot of people like to travel, right? So, or even if you don't travel, a lot of people work in industries that are travel sensitive. Again, I'm making this in May 2020, in the midst of COVID-19 and coronavirus, where we've actually seen the result of a cutoff in tourism. Right? Not, it's more drastic than the result of currency exchange rate changes, but there are a lot of people who depend on tourism for their livelihood. Tour guides, hotels, people who work with those industries. It's very important. So when currencies appreciate or depreciate, all of these people are affected in one way or the other. And sometimes, people think about this very simplistically, right? They think, okay, so the dollar depreciates. That means the dollar is losing value. That's bad. Well, not necessarily, right? With everything in economics, changes create, whether it's policy change or just changes that happen in markets, changes create winners and losers, right? So who are some winners and losers of a depreciated US dollar, a US dollar that's less valuable? Well, we can start with some foreign folks, right? So if the dollar is depreciated, foreign folks will benefit from this because US goods are now cheaper. So they can buy more stuff that we make, right? They can come travel here and it's less expensive for them. So they're winners in that situation. But there's also winners right here in the US, right? If you make products that a foreign person buys, now you have more business. If you work in a tourism sensitive industry, whether it's hotels or you're a tour guide in like New York City or Chicago or a place like that, you're going to get more business when more foreign travelers come here. So it's not a winning and losing situation when the dollar depreciates. It's not, like other countries are winning and we're losing. There are winners and losers on both sides. Um, and losers of a depreciated dollar. Well, if I'm an American and I wanted to travel to another country, that would be more expensive for me. If I'm an American who likes buying foreign goods, now they're more expensive for me, right? So some people are going to be better off and some people are going to be worse off. And this is tricky because, we haven't even talked about supply chains, right? Even if a car is manufactured in the United States, oftentimes it uses parts from all around the world. So, if the dollar depreciates, for example, um, that US made car is going to be cheaper to foreign people. So they're going to buy more US cars. But let's say that car is produced using parts from Japan, for example, right? If the dollar is depreciated and a company, let's say just like Ford, wants to buy those parts from Japan, it's going to be more expensive to do so. So it's a very, very complicated ecosystem here because supply chains have become so international. So currency exchange rates are always changing, and there's never like a defined winning country and losing country. There are winners and losers in all countries, right? So that's a little bit about why exchange rates matter. And again, even if you never travel and physically exchange currency for another currency, although I hope you do because it's a wonderful experience to have, because of so much importing and exporting and global trade that we have, currency exchange rates very much affect you. And so you can see why governments might try to manipulate this. If a government wants its country to export more stuff, they might try to depreciate their currency to make their goods cheaper to foreign countries. They get more business, right? So there are motives that, citizens will press their governments to pursue in terms of exchange rates. So, with that said, I just want to, in conclusion, thank you one final time for watching. I've made about 80 videos in this series, and hopefully you've learned a lot from them. I very much, as always, appreciate you watching. It's always what I close my videos out with, not just because it's nice to say, but because I really, really mean it. Thank you so much for watching, wanting to learn a little bit about economics, and hopefully I've imparted upon you at this point why it's such a valuable field of study. And I very much hope that you pursue your study of economics even beyond these videos and keep exploring because there is a lot to learn. So one final time, thank you for watching.